Hi everyone, this is Lara Jade of Lara Jade Photography, and I've recently collaborated with Greater Than Gatsby to bring you the new Editorial retouch set. The purpose of this video is to show you how the location editorial retouch set works and give you an idea of how I approach color within my own work. I chose this image because I feel it best represents how to get the most out of the location set. Remember, to get the best results from this set, you should experiment as much as possible to find a color workflow that works best for you. One of the most useful parts of this set is the fact you can choose a foundation action before approaching color. Foundation actions are what we apply to an image before color toning. They simply prepare an image to be toned, adding either vibrancy, contrast, brightness, and/or sculpt the highlights, shadows, or midtones. Choosing one of these foundation actions depends on the image you're working on. The sculpted action, as we can find here, adds contouring to your image, separating and reshaping the highlights and shadows. This works for the majority of images as a primary foundation. The diffused foundation, as we can find here, brightens an image that was taken in full or partial shade. The luminous foundation, the third option, evens out the shadow and highlights by decontouring the image. This works best on images that are in direct light or have more contrast. Okay, so now I've chosen my sculpted foundation, I'm going to go ahead and approach the artistic tones. Now for this particular image, I want to try and make this image more desirable. I want it to focus on my subject, focus on the clothes and this beautiful dress, because this is the hero of the shot. We're trying to sell the dress here. And I want to make this background look a bit more desirable as well, because it's kind of more realistic. And when I'm trying to sell a lifestyle and this kind of classic beauty, this ethereal scene, this corner here is taking me back to too much reality. So I want to try and get away from that. So the first thing I'm going to do is approach what is my favorite action from this set, Flare, which is the very first one. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. And as you can see, it's desaturated the majority of the image. I like the way it's desaturated her skin. It's made it quite painterly. It's desaturated these green tones in the back because I always try and avoid those green tones if I can. I'm just going to take it down on the opacity to somewhere maybe around 60, I would say 60% here, because I still want to keep the tones in the wall here. I like that it's desaturated her skin a bit. I like that it's desaturated the background, but I still think the image needs some more vibrancy and it needs some warmth. I want someone to look at this image and imagine themselves as that girl in the dress there on a warm day in this beautiful location. So the second action I'm going to start with is Palm Springs. And Palm Springs really boosts the colors and the vibrancy of the image. And on 100%, it's a little too much. So I'm going to go ahead and take that opacity down to around 50%. And as you can see, it's really helped overall bring the warmth back to the image. It's made the image look a bit more vibrant. And at this point, I'd be really happy with where it's at as well. I am going to go ahead and just experiment a little bit with some of these. They may or may not work, but this is the point of the video, to show you how I approach color. So I'm going to go ahead and click Dulce Vita there, which is also one of my favorite actions of this set. I'm going to go ahead and take down that opacity, and that's just bringing back some depth into those greens as well. So I'm going to put that on around 10% there. I'm also going to show you how I keep my workflow organized. So I'm going to go ahead and select Dulce Vita, Palm Springs, and Flare, all of my artistic tones, drag it down to the folder at the bottom, which creates a new group, and I'm going to rename that Color Toning. Okay. And that just keeps everything organized, and I can really see the full effect of how that works there. So you can see immediately how that's been approached, how more desirable that image looks now. You know, you want to be that girl sitting in that image, and it's more relevant to the era and the styling as well. So some of you might say, well, is it fashion photography and are you selling a product if you change the color of the dress? And yes and no. In editorial, you can get away with it a little more. However, this is the hero of the shot. This dress is the hero of the shot. So we want to make sure that if this is on the pages of a magazine, we're going in and we're making sure that when viewers see this, they're not seeing a green dress. It's more of a cyan or a blue color. So if you wanted to change that, the best way of doing it is going ahead down to Palm Springs, because that was the action that changed that to more of that color, the greeny color. Go in, make sure you're on the Palm Springs, make sure you're on the white mask there. You're going to go into the dress, you're going to choose the paintbrush. Make sure your paintbrush hardness is on 0% because this makes it more seamless when you're retouching. I'm going to put my opacity there on around 50%. And I'm going to go ahead and choose a black brush because it's opposite of white for those unfamiliar with masking. And I'm going to go ahead and just paint over that dress. I'm going to spend a few quick minutes doing this. I'd be more of a perfectionist if I was retouching this for a client, but just for the ease of showing you guys and to make it quick, feel free to skip this part if you're not interested in it. Go through and just simply edit that dress and make it more relevant to what we originally saw when we first saw it. Just be more careful over the arms here. And up here as well. So as you can see, it's starting to look a lot more like the dress we saw originally. So I'm going to spend a few more minutes working here. And I do it on 50% because I want it to be more seamless. And I do like the fact it's made it slightly more green because it works more, it's more complementary to the orange within the colors. And that allows us to give much more control over where we want the particular tones in the image. So if you are a person that wants to do everything pretty quick, or you've got a portrait or a child portrait and you have to get things done quickly, it's very easy just to go ahead and add each of these as you see fit, changing the opacity. But if you want much more control, the masking really helps you. If you wanted to change this area of the plant on its own, the change in the colors of the pillars, the pond area, her hair color, then you get a lot more control doing that. So that's what I really like about these actions, is that you can really choose to use them in what way you see fit best to your workflow. Before I jump ahead and show you one more tip, I just want to show you the before and after of this particular image. So we're going to go ahead and click here, before and after. And now you can see how the color tone matches the subject and the styling as well. So that's what I'm always looking for when I do an editorial retouch, is how to bring out the subject, how to bring out the background, and how to sell that lifestyle of the girl in the picture and how to connect with the viewer as well. So I hope you found that useful. On the next step, we're going to be talking about batch editing. So if you are interested, please make sure to watch the next section. So I get a lot of questions on how to batch edit on workshops and seminars, so I want to show you guys how simply batch editing works with Photoshop and how to do it with these particular actions. Now, it all comes from having an organized workflow, so whenever you're toning your work, it's very important you throw them into a folder, so it's easy just to drag that folder over. So we're going to go here, we're going to go Window, Arrange, Float All in Windows, and I'm going to pull open this image here. I'm going to zoom out on that one so you guys can best see what works. So here I have my image that's been toned, and here I have my image that needs to be toned. So here I'm going to drag over the folder from this image on the right over to here. I'm also going to go in and just delete that mask of that particular image because we don't need the mask there. And I'm going to show you how that color has been applied to this image, even though it's in a different setting and requires a little bit more work. You can see how that image on the left now matches with the image on the right. So if this was me shooting a series of images, whether it's an editorial or a portrait session, and I want that consistency, I would open all my images, I would work on one significant image from the set, and then drag over my color tone onto this particular image here. So on this tone, as you can see, Dulce Vida, I'm going to change that. Palm Springs, I'm going to change, it's a little higher there. And flare, so it makes it a tiny bit more brighter. So as you can see, that has significantly changed that image, again made it more desirable and more relevant to the styling and the look of the image as well. To finalize my image, I'm going to add a layer of grain. And the reason I do this is because I want to add texture back into my image. So I'm going to go ahead and click light grain, and that adds a new layer there. I'm going to carefully zoom in to my subject, like so. And as you can see, that's just finalized the image nicely there and brought back some texture. If you are interested in a heavier grain, I would recommend for things like black and white using the heavier grain. It is heavier, it works better for kind of film noir, things that are lit with more contrast, more kind of low-key images. But light grain usually is what is part of my workflow that I like to finalize images before sending to my clients or uploading to the web. If you would like to purchase this set or any of the other editorial retouch sets, go to www.greaterthangatsby.com. Or if you would like more information on my work, go to www.larajade.com. Thank you.